Hi, my name's Dr. Benjamin Jones and I'm here with Dr. Mike Danaher. We're historians at CQ University and this video is about writing your first history essay. We're going to go through the expectations at university level in terms of content, research and essay writing, or CREW for short.
This video is particularly helpful if you are in your first year at university, as we will go through some essay basics. But it will also be useful if you are doing your first history elective or just as a quick refresher. A lot of students find writing a history essay daunting because they ask big questions about topics you may not really know. Sometimes students respond by putting it off, and then the deadline gets closer and it just becomes more stressful.
That's right, and if it's left to the night before, many students have no choice but to try and just quickly read short internet articles and include many long quotes, and they get disappointed when they get a low grade or even a fail. Or worse yet, some students are tempted to plagiarise or be dishonest with their sources and make it look like they've read more than they did. And perhaps saddest of all, some students simply drop out of the unit or even university altogether because they feel like it's just too hard. So in this video, we're going to break down the essay into its elements, but also provide you with a timeline and show you what you should be doing when you're 3 or 4 weeks out from the due date, when you've got 2 weeks left, and when there's just 1 week left, and also what you should be doing when you've got a couple of days to go. So please use this as a checklist. Don't just write down the due date in your calendar. Make a note of what you want to achieve at these different points, and it's going to greatly reduce your stress levels and increase your chance of getting a high mark.
But before we get into the checklist, let's start at the beginning and ask, what is a history essay? There are lots of different types of writing: reports, literature reviews, opinion articles, document analysis, and they all require different skills. In the arts or the humanities, which includes not only history but English, sociology, anthropology, etc., the essay is a key skill to understand what it is. A good history essay does not mean that you have displaying excellent knowledge of the topic, even though that is important. A good essay does not just have beautiful written English, even though this is important too. The cornerstone of a good history essay is that it makes a persuasive argument.
That's right, and it's important to reiterate that a full third of your mark has nothing to do with history or research at all. It's about how well you write, because the essay is a particular genre of writing with specific rules. The introduction paragraph, for instance, doesn't just introduce the topic and the question, it must include a thesis statement that outlines your argument. Your body paragraphs must begin with a topic sentence, it must be linked to the question, for instance.
Essay writing is a complex skill and takes years to develop, but you can get yourself a head start by understanding the basic rules and the specific ingredients needed in each paragraph. A great starting point is to download the CQ Essay Basics PDF below. You can also contact the Academic Learning Centre, who run seminars on all different aspects of essay writing, and there are also digital books in the library on how to improve your essay skills.
And they're really great to access. Sadly, the majority of students do absolutely nothing when the history essay is 3 or 4 weeks away. And that's partly human nature. We're all busy and it's hard to prioritise something when it seems like it's far away. But often it's also because students don't know how to start. It's a great idea to look at the list of essay questions early on, in the first week of term if you can, but definitely with 3 weeks to go, you need to take a firm step, choose a question, and also read the instructions. Many students skim read the instructions, just look at what the questions are, the word length, and the due date. That's important, but you need to read all the instructions. What is the referencing style? Is there a minimum number of sources? Are you expected to use a particular source or a textbook? Carefully reading the instructions is a very easy first step and should be done early. But also note in your calendar for 3 weeks before the due date, saying that this is the stage by which you have to choose a question.
It's a good idea to choose a question that you find interesting or one you want to know more about. That helps with motivation. But the most important thing is to make a commitment to one question and begin the initial research. Your early reading should include the study guide and any required or recommended readings so that you can place the essay question in some sort of context and get some idea about it. After that, you must go to the University Library website and demonstrate that you know how to do scholarly research. One common mistake students make in their first essay is trying to Google the answer and using general history websites as their sources. Academic material is usually behind a paywall, so you must develop your skills at using the university library to find books and articles written by historians.
Learning how to research at a university level takes time. We're used to finding answers quickly on the internet, but a history essay is an exercise in thinking as well as writing, and it takes time to learn how to use a university library, how to play with keywords and search terms and databases and get the best results related to your essay question. And remember, you can always ask the librarians for help. No one expects you to start writing or to have read everything 3 weeks out from the due date, but you need to choose a question and locate maybe 3 or 4 key sources that you plan to use. In every history essay, reading is what takes the longest. If you have 6 journal articles or book chapters in your bibliography, and that would be on the low end, incidentally, that's going to take you at least 6 hours to read carefully. Take notes, highlight quotes you might want to use. So to really set yourself up for success, a great goal with 3 weeks out would be to have read at least 2 book chapters or articles.
When there is just 2 weeks to go, the rubber hits the road, and it is crucial that you start your reading. Begin with the most relevant sources and the ones you know that you must use. If there is a section on your history essay in the study guide or in the textbook with a relevant chapter, then start there. If there are recommended readings in the unit's website, download and start reading those. Finally, identify what sources from the University Library are must-reads. So if there is a historical figure with one main biographer, for instance, that would be a must-read. With big topics like the World Wars or the French Revolution, there will be dozens of books and hundreds of articles, so it is important that you identify at least a couple of the reputable ones and start reading those.
For your first history essay, it's vital you understand what a scholarly source is and how to access them. You can find out that Alexander the Great died in 323 BCE or that the Cuban Missile Crisis was in 1962 anywhere. You can Google it in 2 seconds. You can read Wikipedia, the History Channel, Britannica, dozens of websites. You can even get ChatGPT to summarise these open access sources. But that's not what you've been asked to do. A key skill you're being tested on is your ability to do scholarly research, which means peer-reviewed sources in the university library. It's not just a matter of saying Alexander died in 323, but also you know that John Boardman is one of his leading biographers and he's published through Princeton University Press, or that Jonathan Coleman, for example, is one of the leading historians on the Cuban Missile Crisis and he's published his book through Edinburgh University Press. So remember, just like a third of your mark is just on essay writing, another third is just on your research and referencing. So with 2 weeks to go, you need to locate and start reading at least 4 scholarly sources, not websites from Google, serious scholarly sources. And if you're having trouble finding them, that's the time to contact the ALC, the library, or your unit coordinator.
And one final point with 2 weeks to go is to make sure you are actively reading. So that means not just skimming through the book, but also pausing, thinking deeply about the points, highlighting key phrases and points, noting the page number in case you want to cite it later on. You might prefer to print out some of the sources so that you can highlight sections with notes. It is important that as you read these sources, you also think about the essay question and start planning and structuring. As you read, think about what your argument will be. Remember, the marker will be looking to see what your argument is in your introduction and whether you have made a convincing argument throughout the body of the essay or not. You will need evidence for your argument, so do your reading looking for primary and secondary evidence. With 2 weeks out, you should be able to write a rough essay plan and a draft thesis statement and some dot points on what you want to explore.
With 1 week left, you need to start writing and editing. You'll still need to do some more reading and go back to some of the things you've already read, but it's vital you start actually writing. This begins with a plan. With short essays, around 1,500 to 3,000 words, you usually want to have 3 or 4 main points that you think will prove your thesis statement. So write a quick introduction, knowing you'll need to come back and polish it later, and start putting your paragraphs together. It's usually best if it flows in a chronological way, but you can also set it out thematically and have a number of different themes. Avoid having too much background information in your essay that then takes over most of your word count, and you could find yourself then not treating the question with sufficient detail.
As you start reading or writing, you might find you need more information on different aspects, and so you can do additional reading, but this is only possible if you've left yourself sufficient time. As you read, keep an eye out for primary quotes or evidence that you can use in your essay to drive home a point. It is okay to directly quote historians and other secondary sources too, but as a rule, do this sparingly, and only if the person you are quoting is a genuine authority on the topic, and the quote you've chosen is just a gem that you just can't paraphrase.
Now, when you've got just 2 days to go, you need to have a first draft finished. So a good technique is whatever the due date is, actually write it in your calendar 2 days early and aim towards having a draft finished with 2 days to spare. Once you have a finished draft, the first thing to do is slowly, carefully read through your introduction paragraph. This is the most important paragraph. It's the first impression you make on the reader. Go back to the Essay Basics PDF and check, does it do everything it needs to do? Does it introduce the topic, have a clear thesis statement, and then map out how you'll make your case? And importantly, does the intro match up with the body paragraphs, and does that match up with your conclusion? It's possible that your argument changed a bit over the course of writing the essay, so make sure the intro, the body paragraphs, and the conclusion all line up or reinforce each other or work together to convince the reader that your thesis statement is correct.
With 1 or 2 days to go, you should have a final read through your sources and look for any last quotes or evidence to add. Especially if you have a little bit under the word limit, find a final quote or extra piece of evidence. The last couple of days or even the due day itself should be used for a final copy edit. Make sure you have used the correct referencing system, look for typos, and also look for better expression. Get out the thesaurus and see if there is a better word or phrase to use. See if you are being repetitive in your language. Weeding out typos and referencing properly is easy marks, and writing with flair and style can be what separates good essays from outstanding ones. So it is worth taking 1 extra day just to edit.
And what do you do on the due date? This might sound obvious, but submit your essay. It's almost never worth taking a late penalty to do further work on your essay. If issues come up and you know you can't submit on time, contact your unit coordinator as soon as possible to request an extension. But if it does get to the due date, you're not quite happy, you think you could improve it a bit, just submit it, because the extra couple of marks you might get from another day's work probably won't offset the late penalty.
Remember that essays are a task in project and time management, as well as an opportunity to develop your historical skills. Set those dates in your calendar straight away, just not the due date, but what you wanted to achieve when there is 3, 2, and 1 week left. They say that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, and that is very true of history essays. It is not just something you sit down and write. You must have a research and reading plan as well as an essay plan.
And just finally, when you get your first essay back, understand that the expectations at university are higher than at school, and your mark may be a bit lower than what you're used to. Be sure to look not just at the grade, but carefully read over the comments. Identify where you need to improve. This is a process. Be kind to yourself. Your first essay won't be the best thing you ever write, but the key thing is to learn from your mistakes, hang in there, reach out for help if you need it. A university degree is a journey, and completing your first history essay is just one step. So hopefully this video has given you some important tips and ideas about where you should be as the due date gets closer, and good luck.
Thank you, Ben. That's great advice.